Hey everyone, Temporal here, and today we are going to be looking at the new Overwatch experimental patch notes. And I should warn you, these ones look to actually be quite experimental, not the usual, oh, they throw them up on the PTR and then we get 95% of what's put up there every time. These ones do look to be more experimental. They've had people in the community, players, content creators, etc., actually come up with these like they did the one time. That said, like they did the one time where it was a bunch of silly patch notes where they experimented with everything from Tracer having a different number of blinks to Sigma flying to Diva being able to get remechs that do massive amounts of damage. That didn't go live, except for that last one. That last one did go live. So maybe there's going to be something in here that's going to go live as well, but these patch notes do look pretty silly. As for who we get to thank for them, it looks like they went to Violet for info on the support heroes, Flats for info on the tank heroes, and Sumju for the DPS heroes. So those were the ones responsible for what we're going to see here. Let's take a look at what they did. And again, I want to see, we want to know what's in here, because while these are experimental and I don't expect these to mostly happen, they did surprise us last time and put a non-serious thing into the game when they thought it was good. So let's take a look. We got to be ready for this, even if we're the regular players. Okay, so, and as they've said, these are over-the-top balance changes coming directly from Overwatch content creators. Great, great. So we have Defense Matrix, size increased by 10%. Not incredibly over the top, but definitely makes a difference. That's a bigger impact than you might think. Duration increased from 2 to 4 seconds. Speed increased by 25% on boosters. That would be huge. Yes, she would most certainly be the dive off tank at that point, because again, she has motor control. While she's using her boosters, Diva can boost in one direction, change, go the other direction, hit U-turns, go clear someone from high ground, have boosters left to go deal with someone, go dive someone, eliminate them, use what's left of her boosters to get high ground. These are things she already sort of does. If you double her duration and increase the speed at which she can do this stuff by 25%, that would be huge. So yes, these would be significant Diva buffs that we're looking at here. She's just going to block out the whole map with bigger defense matrix, longer boosters, all those sorts of things. We do then see eject. Ejecting out of the mech now ejects you at 15 meters per second up and 10 meters per second in the direction you are holding. I don't really have a great reference for what that is compared to what it was before. So I don't really have the greatest comment on, is that going to make her just go zippity zip to get away? I tend to think it won't matter, because when it comes to Diva mechs, she has her mech with its, legs there, whatever, and its cannon arms. Sure, that's what it's got. That's totally how the mech works. And she always ejects from this spot on the mech right here, whether she's going that way, that way, that way, whatever you hold, and really at whatever speed you have her eject, she's going to be here for a moment, and we've all gotten pretty good at timing that moment. So you can pretty consistently, if you're one person, do like half of her health, hit her with a shot, a Zarya right click, a Hanzo arrow, whatever you want, a pulse bomb. You can pretty consistently hit her right as she's ejecting. So I think the idea is probably to make her less vulnerable, but I doubt it really accomplishes that. We shall see. My grade A drawing skills there, I know. I know you're all impressed. Okay. Erisa, health changed from 200 to 250. Oh, health changed from 200 health and 250 armor to 1 health, 399 armor. Now where's the Christmas hat? Whoa now. Whoa now. This sounds OP. This sounds pretty OP, guys. I mean, this Christmas hat, that could be the biggest buff on here. Okay. So, obviously that's a lot. Going, hey, 399 armor. They're decreasing the total amount of health bar that they have, because it's no longer, before it would have totaled to 450, 200 health, 250 armor. And now it's going to total at 400, but 399 of it would be armor. That might be doable. The 400, even with armor, was super annoying back when you had to worry about pulse bomb, 400 damage pulse bombs, things like that. I can see that. That's, since they've gotten rid of that, it's not such a big deal anymore to be at that 400 number. Obviously, she could live a pulse bomb, but not really when you include stick damage, armor reduction, etc. She was effectively going to be gone if she got hit by pulse bomb without a fortify, even if she had full health. Now, that's less of a concern with the damage that's in play there. 399 armor. Armor is really good. That's an interesting trade. That is an interesting trade. I mean, it would never actually stick in a permanent way like that. It would just be made 400 armor, 0 health. But that's an interesting one. Okay, protective barrier. Health reduced from 600 to 300. Cooldown reduced from 10 seconds to 8 seconds. No thank you. It makes her a little bit more mobile, but not at that cost. Her barrier, like, you're never going to be able to put her barrier down under fire. It's going to be destroyed before it touches the ground every time. If Erisa's getting shot at by multiple enemies, multiple members of the enemy team, if she's trying to do any sort of attention drawing, the barrier is going to, like, get deleted immediately. Like 300 health is nothing when you're under fire. It can still be useful for you're putting down a screen, like, hey, they're not looking at you yet, and you start shooting at them, and as soon as someone starts to turn to look back at you, you drop a shield. Still got a little use for that, but this is not a trade that most people are going to want. That's a little. Oh, and I see why, because we've gone hard into mobility. So fusion driver, no longer slowed while firing. Okay, so we want the barriers to be very temporary because we don't want to stay anywhere. We just want to zip around to the map as Erisa while going, battle cattle firing shots. We want to zip around to the map, and maybe we'll throw a barrier down. And at 300 health, this is more like a Winston bubble that's like, hey, I'm blocking a sleep dart with this. Hey, I'm blocking a hog hook with this. Its deploy speed isn't great for that, though. So I still don't think that'll work amazingly, but now I see where Flats is it who's doing the tank changes? Where Flats is going with this change, sure. Fortify, sure enough, duration increased from 4 to 6 seconds. Again, trying to make Erisa more mobile. Can now be headshot while using Fortify. Okay. But surely not on the Christmas hat, right? Surely if you try to shoot through the Christmas hat, that's like armor. That's like, no, you can't actually hit them there. In fact, that could just be invincible. Like you try and shoot that, doesn't do any damage, blocks damage. I think you could block pulse bombs with that. Okay. Headshot while using Fortify, fine. Halt cooldown reduced from 6 to 4 seconds. 4-second halt cooldown while racing around the map with 300 barriers is Erisa. So Flats is trying to turn Erisa into Reinhardt. That's what we see here. We see that we've got longer duration fortify. We have ridiculous amounts of fun to have with halt here. No longer slowed while firing, and then no health on our shield. Slightly shorter cooldown. Okay, that would be an interesting Erisa. I don't think any of that would actually go through. They could play with Erisa's health at some point in the future because you don't really have that 400 damage move to worry about specifically anymore. But I do look at this and go, yeah, I wouldn't expect any of this to stick. There's no way you'd lower Halt's cooldown to 4 seconds. No longer slowing Erisa while using Fusion Driver. I could see the appeal there from an Overwatch 2 standpoint. Like, I could see the appeal. We've had this discussion with Realth on this channel of, hey, they're clearly terrified of what bunkers are going to look like, and some of this does look less bunkery, so maybe. Maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe there is a future for some of this. I don't like it. I don't like it at all, but I could see why Blizzard might. They do not like their bunkers very much. Okay. It really just does become Reinhardt with much worse shields, but fortify and rage. That's not a great combination, but I could see that working. Okay. Reinhardt. Armor health increased from 200 to 225. Total health now 525, so we're just experimenting with a different number. We've tried 550, we've tried 500, we've tried moving the armor and health around, and now we're doing 225 armor. Split the difference, sure. Barrier health back up to 2,000. I thought we didn't want Barrier Watch. Fire strike damage reduced from 100 to 80. Maybe that means I'll be able to get players to stop fire striking when a swing would do. Wouldn't that be amazing? 2 charges, so that's Overwatch 2 prep. Projectile double speed. Double speed. I can see the windows now. At double speed, you have to have reduced its damage because BAP window fire strike at double speed is just like even the divas are going to get outpaced in some of those situations. Like you can in the middle of a melee fight drop a window in front of your Reinhardt, have him fire strike through it for 160 damage, and diva can't even react. Yeah, that would be something, but it's been made non-lethal. Okay, that could be fun, but no, can't happen. Earth Shatter. Knockdown duration increased from 2.5 to 3 seconds. I mean, that feels really good for Reinhardt, but for no one else. Now deals 400 damage in a 1.5 meter radius around the impact point where hammer hits the ground. Okay. Okay. I guess that's going to make it, like, your shield will still block it even if your shield has 5 HP if you're the other Reinhardt. But it's kind of like, oh, this seems like it should do more damage here. But that worries me a little bit because this is sort of similar to the Diva Call mech change, where it's just sort of like silliness type thing. And so I'm gonna keep an eye on that. I don't think this hugely matters. 400 damage, obviously, that's twice the health that a squishy has. And people are stunned for longer. I don't think so. I don't like it. Blocking an enemy shatter now plays the voice line, "You shame yourself." Blocking an enemy shatter now shows up in the kill feed using Ryan's shield icon. I mean, I guess that's fair. We have Diva ult eats show up in the feed, so it makes sense to have blocking shatter show up in the feed. But you do sort of have a where does it end thing. Like if you block High Noon, does that show up in the feed? If it doesn't, then get eliminations behind your shield. Like, where are we going with this? Knockback resistance increased from 30 to 40%. Well, that would make Reinhardt more fun. So overall, we look at these Reinhardt changes. More health, stupid amount more shields, lightning speed fire strikes, longer Earth Shatter duration, more Earth Shatter damage at point blank range, and some silliness surrounding it. And then knockback resistance. That would make him tanky. That would make him a monster running around. We have a super chat coming in from Magdalena, saying Erisa duels in a similar way that an off-tank might. Thank you, Magdalena, for that super chat. We appreciate that one. Once again, saying Erisa duels in a similar way that an off-tank might. Yeah, I understand where she's going for there. That's a whole nother discussion. If you want to get into it, you can join our Discord server in the description below and participate in that discussion. Or you could go check out a review that we did of your Overwatch's Erisa guide, where there's quite a bit of discussion around, oh, it's a high ground artillery support, off-tank duel, whatever. Okay, moving on to Roadhog. Maximum health reduced from 600 to 500. Interesting. Scrap cannon pellet damage reduced from 6.6 to 5.0, so he's going to get some buffs in exchange for this, right? Hook. Impact damage increased from 30 to 70. Okay. Cooldown reduced from 8 to 6. No thank you. Healing reduced from 300 to 250. Whole Hog now lifts Roadhog while using it if he is pointed downward. I mean, that's funny. That's funny, and again, funny concerns me because funny is the sort of thing that, oh, let's do remake stuff, etc. Landing. That concerns me about sticking. But we're lowering his health. We're still making Take a Breather only heal half of his health. We're making the pellets do less damage, but we're making up for that damage, I think, is the idea, at least against non-tank heroes, with the increased hook damage. And that'll probably make whether he gets people eliminated or not actually be less about did you aim your weapon exactly right at that character's character model. So I can see that being a consistency change, and I can see that sort of taking away some of Roadhog's skill, which isn't really great, but consistency changes are nice. Cooldown reduced from 8 to 6, though, just no dice. I don't care that he has less health. Roadhog, the way you play around Roadhog, this would encourage more of a no, you actually have to try to eliminate Roadhog if he's got 500 health, 250 health breather, and 6-second hook CD, and the hook is roughly as dangerous as it was before, but available more often, so overall more dangerous. This would change how you have to handle Roadhog from, for example, a lot of times if Roadhog is playing in a bunker, not on an off angle, but in a bunker, the right thing to do is to go, hey, bait out the hook, threaten him, pressure him until he uses hook, then dive his team and eliminate people who aren't him, and then deal with the next hook. But if you're reducing his hook cooldown by 2 seconds and reducing his health and breather, you'd have to try to eliminate him first. And I don't think that's a good change, honestly. Like, I don't think that's a good change at all. Now, that's a little bit of a niche situation because obviously Roadhog should more frequently be off angling. For example, his team is over this bottom X, he's over to the right in this other X, and the blue team is over here, and he's playing like this. And you can go, after he misses a hook or doesn't get a hook because they had cover, go choose to punish him, especially if he's out of line of sight of his team, or you can force him out of line of sight of his team, force him back into an alley or something where his team can't offer covering fire to protect him. That's a little bit more valid. Like, that's more common. But even so, I don't think I like this change of it makes it easier for non-Roadhog players to play Roadhog to get the eliminations. That I can live with, though I'm sort of against some of this let's nerf skills that people have spent years building is never really my favorite. But also, I just don't think this focus to let's make it even more correct to go after the Roadhog when I preferred the okay, let's switch past the defensive cooldown. Let's switch past the take a breather, switch to the next target. He's used hook, let's take out 2 more targets before that next hook is up, and then we'll deal with the next hook, and then we'll deal with him. Like, that's a better way to play, I think. It's healthier, and I don't like where this change pushes that matchup at a macro team level. Kongik says this is just an experimental patch for the devs to show that they will be listening and cooperating with streamers more in the future. Okay, I mean that's fine, but like I think my view on this is sort of like the previous one where you should maybe try to be somewhat serious. You should maybe try to be somewhat serious with your changes because you sort of build trust. It's going to be really hard to do things like, oh, this is the patch to save the game, or here's the patch that we do if whatever, and we can do better. We can balance the game better than the devs. It's really hard to have any sort of leg to stand on for that whenever members of the community get handed the reins to drive effectively, we end up with double duration boosters and speed increased by 25%. Like, oh, okay, so we're not going to be remotely serious with this. Like, what if you actually delivered a maybe extreme in some ways, but overall a good patch? An extreme because, hey, this is actually going to do something that's good for the game. Something is massively or under or overpowered right now and it needs to be adjusted. Like, what if instead of going, hey, let's be silly, you went a little bit, no, let's actually drop a good patch. But this is the second time, I believe, that it's been handed over to community members. And unsurprisingly, after the first time, they have again gone the very not serious route with this. Which just makes it hard to take community members seriously when they then say, oh, the devs are, so terrible at balancing this. How dare they leave goats in the game for a year? How dare we have double shield for so long? How dare we do this? Like, well, do you guys just want, a clown fiesta of what's going on here? Well, yeah, it kind of seems like you do. Okay. Sigma. Health increased from 300 to 400. That's 500 total. Okay. Sigma is now able to hold jump while airborne to slow his descent. Why does Sigma need slow fall? Like, he has gravity manipulation, but okay. Experimental barrier. This ability is now disabled. It's experimental after all. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Accretion. Impact damage increased from 30 to 40. Explosion damage increased from 40 to 50. Now susceptible to deflect abilities such as Defense Matrix. Sigma now uses his yes voice line after every use. Okay. Kinetic Grasp. Cooldown reduced from 12 to 8 seconds. Now increases Sigma's movement speed by 100% while active. I don't want to play this hero. Like, I don't remotely want to play this hero. No experimental barrier, which is what his parry technique is about. So, no parries. You have Kinetic Grasp, which is still on too long of a cooldown for a hero that doesn't have. It's on too long of a cooldown, and it has too many ways to be. Well, no, too many ways to be canceled. I mean, if you can be stunned out of Kinetic Grasp, you won't get stunned out of Kinetic Grasp by accretion anymore, by rock, but you can still get stunned out of it by hook, by Brig Bash, by Earth Shatter, like all those things will still do it. I don't care that you move faster. Yes, you'll be harder to hit, but I don't care that you move faster. It's on an 8-second cooldown. This hero isn't going to feel good. You have Slow Fall no one cares about. And yeah, your rock is going to do a lot more damage, but it's going to be blockable. This hero's been dumpstered. I do not want to play this hero. No. I don't care that he has more health. That's not a good hero. Okay. Winston. Knockback effects are now 30% less effective against Winston. Okay. Winston deals 100% more damage to deployable objects, barriers, turrets, etc. I could live with that. Like, I could actually just net live with that. If you wanted to give him a little bit more of a niche there, because he's sort of been, to give him a little bit more of a, he's different than Ball. Like, lean into that, hey, he cleaves, he pierces barriers. Well, now he does double damage to barriers. He breaks turrets, things like that even faster. Sure. Jump Pack now deals up to 100% damage to enemies within 4 meters of the launch location. Oh, okay. I mean, so when he takes off, it's going to do damage too, but up to 100 damage? No. No. That's too much. I mean, even if he lands right on someone, it's up to 50 damage, and it falls off pretty darn fast with any distance. Travel speed increased by 30%. Yeah, Diva's booster speed went up 25%. Primal Rage health bonus increased from 500 to 1,000, so we'll have 1,500. He doesn't need it, guys. Like, here's the thing about Winston and Primal Rage. If you find yourself still getting blown up when you Primal Rage, when you got healed and you went up to 1,000 health, in most of those situations, getting another 500 health and going up to 1,500 wasn't going to help very much. Like, yes, you can eventually solve the problem with more health, but it's mostly like that's a lot of health, and if you're getting even just 1,000 plus the heal that it does, heal is in, if you were at 100 when you popped it, you're still at 1,000, so you've gained 900 health, that sort of thing. Like, it's a lot, and when you're just getting blown up, you're mostly still gonna just get blown up. And other times, your 1,000 health is perfectly fine. And what this is mostly coming down to is you're trying to do too much with Primal Rage. People are trying to be like, I can just tank stupid amounts of hit. And nothing can take stupid amounts of hits in Overwatch. That's not how the game is designed. Damage is pretty high in Overwatch. You don't become now I'm supposed to take hits. No, you still want to use Primal Rage primarily for its mobility, primarily to fight 1 or 2 heroes. You don't want to Primal Rage and fight 6 heroes. That's not how it works. You still should get blown up, and I'm Primal Raging to point stall. That's not a great use of Primal Rage type situations. But, this probably does mean that you can take 1v2s a little more effectively, 1v3s without completely getting blown up. So it would sure be a buff. But these changes, no, not a fan. That could be interesting though. If this was what we got, if this was this patch's version of Call Mech doing damage, and this was what became permanent, I'd be okay with that. Do I have a little bit of bias as, Winston favorite hero? Yeah, I definitely do. Grappling Claw. Max duration is now 3.5 seconds. That would cause riots. Roll. Jump height increased by 100%. So you can pile drive without having to do any techs. Again, we're taking away the skills that players have built. Like, I sort of have this issue of, like, we took away things from Genji like wall dash. We took away a lot of the early game techs that were like, hey, this is a tech that you execute to get something, and the development team or the balance team took the view on them of, hey, those are exploits, those aren't supposed to be in the game. But then like Mercy got to hold on to Super Jump, and Ball and Doomfist have a whole litany of techs available to them, like wall bouncing to get high enough to hit pile drives. Like, well, if you want Super Jump to be in the game, maybe Super Jump should just be an ability. But Super Jump should have just been an ability years ago. If you want Hammond to have an easy time triggering pile drive without having to use his grappling claw or without having already taken high ground, that's fine, but do something like this. Just make his jump take him higher. Like, but again, that should have been in the game years ago if that was the direction that we were going. So I think at this point it's too late, and you don't betray your player base by going, hey, you've worked on this skill for years and now it's gone. It's not a thing. It's, all this time you put into doing this doesn't make sense anymore. It's the same sort of objection that I had, again, going back to Genji, where it's like change his shuriken distribution angle. Not a good change. It breaks people having trained on it for years. Okay. Full speed impact damage on collision reduced from 50 to 40. Can now change directions a lot more quickly and easily. What does this mean? What are the developers going to do with this with your experimental patch? Okay, okay. Which is again another skill that people have built up. Like turning with your mouse without using your arrow keys really quickly and at the maximum turning speed that you can do so without losing your fireball speed is another skill that Wrecking Ball players at the top have built up, that this is just sort of betraying. We saw another betrayal thing like that where it's like, hey, these skills that play the hog, the distribution of the pellets, we're going to make that matter less by having the hook do more damage. Like a lot of this stuff is like, okay, this tank player, Flats, doesn't like that people have built these specific skills, and it's sort of like, well, Flats, this is sort of these players' equivalents of learning Rhine games with Earth Shatter. So, don't love it. Pile Driver, minimum damage reduced from 20 to 15. Why? Maximum damage reduced from 100 to 80. Oh, because it's so easy to activate now, so you want to make it weaker. Cooldown reduced from 10 to 8 seconds. Weaker. Again, you get it more often because it's weaker. Can now be used from a slightly lower height. Sure. Adaptive shield. Shields granted per target reduced from 75 to 50. Duration increased from 9 to 12 seconds. Cooldowns reduced from 15 to 12 seconds. Please no. The duration being shorter on Adaptive Shield is sort of the last thing Adaptive Shield needs. Adaptive Shield almost doesn't care about its duration, because when you want Adaptive Shield, you want a nice big shield, but then your Hammond is mostly out of power. Your Hammond has hit their roll through, your Hammond has hit their pile drive. Maybe they're going to empty their weapon, but emptying their weapon is much lower tier, and yes, it's the proper thing to do when you have a big Adaptive Shield left, and you've got your abilities, your pile drives, your Grappling Claws on cooldown. It's the right way to spend your Adaptive Shield, but it's not high priority. The Adaptive Shield is to really let you have had the ability to get out with those things. Weakening it further, which they've already done. Remember, it used to be 100 per target. No, it coming up more often potentially makes him do more hits, but he can already do gentle hits. These bad change. Okay. Zarya. So, particle cannon, primary fire. Minimum damage increased from 75 to 85 damage per second. Does Zarya really need more damage? Alt fire explosion no longer hurts yourself, so no more rocket jumping with particle cannon. Okay. Alt fire knockback increased by 150. Okay, so you're gonna move people back more than twice as much, 2.5 times as much as they used to be knocked back, which will make them a lot easier to track when you knock them up into the air. You will bounce them around a bit more. Uh, Particle barrier, health increased from 200 to 250, size increased by 50%. Trying to make her more tanky. This is a very Overwatch 2 mindset. We're making the barriers have more health, and we can see some Overwatch 2 mindset creeping in a couple places here, like what we did with the double fire strikes. Health increased from 200 to 250, and size increased by 50%. So they can absorb more damage, and bubbles are generally bigger than the character's character model that gets bubbled. So this will make them much bigger still, so that they're more able to block for people behind them. More of the like, hey, you've got, say you've got your Lucio here, your Ana here, you have the enemy, I don't know, Hanzo right here, and you bubble your Lucio, and your Lucio gets a big bubble now. That means your Ana's pretty darn safe too. So, sure. I can see it. I can see it. I do wonder what they're doing with that, though, in terms of if you've increased the health that a projected bubble has from 200 to 250, does that mean that you can get the more than 40 energy from a bubble, or does that mean that you still have to do, that you now have to do 250 damage to get that same 40 energy from a bubble? Because that can be a buff or a nerf, and a pretty meaningful one, honestly, depending on which way that went. We really need more information on this one. Damage hero updates. And again, these are brought to us by Somju. Okay? Overall, my response to Flats hero updates is I can see some favorites and list less favorite heroes. I can see Flats wants, Super Diva. I can see Flats wants Erisa to play more like Reinhardt. Obviously, Flats going, hey, Reinhardt doing this, not too surprising. I do not like these Roadhog changes. I think these Sigma changes are the worst changes we've seen so far. Winston changes are okay. Okay is about where I put them. I mean, this is getting into silly territory. A little worse than okay. Yeah. We have this, we're taking away tech power thing. Eh. Weaker Wrecking Ball. This would lead to a weaker Wrecking Ball, other than, hey, it's easier to hit pile drives. So, stronger Wrecking Ball at lower levels, weaker Wrecking Ball as you go up. Not really a fan. Zarya, we just don't know what happens to. Like, I can see what they're trying to do, but I legit don't know if this was a buff or a nerf for Zarya until I know what they've done with energy with these 250 HP bubbles. Could be fun to knock people around. She's going to feel more like a tank, which you potentially want to do for a solo tanking situation where she has the bigger bubbles, the greater health on the bubbles, and the knocking people around more with the right click. So I can see it with an Overwatch 2 mindset. Okay, let's move on to damage. Blast says, I mean, if you don't play Ryan Diva, you're throwing with these changes. I'd kind of agree. I mean, you can just disable Sigma at hero select, play Ryan Diva. Yeah. Ash. Coach Gun now has 2 charges. Okay. Cooldown increased from 12 to 14 seconds on Dynamite. Sure. Hipfire recovery reduced from 0.25 to 0.22 seconds. It's very precise. Aim down sights movement penalty reduced from 30 to 10%. Leaning more into a sniper. We've got 2 charges on Coach Weapon to help her get away. We've increased the cooldown on Dynamite, so Dynamite is something that tends to bring her in. It's one of the things. The fall off range is one thing, but one of the other things that brings her into a closer range than you might think of for someone with a scope is the fact that she wants to get her Dynamites off, and medium to close range obviously works for that, where long range doesn't. So a longer cooldown on that potentially lets her use her coach weapon to rotate more. Like, you can see a little bit more of you get your dynamite off, and then you're able to use a charge of coach gun to change your angle, change your position, and actually semi-snipe for a while. It'll still be medium range sniping for a while, and then you're going to have less of a movement penalty while you're sniping. Obviously, this sort of goes against that, and you could argue, no, these charges are about protecting yourself for hipfire stuff, but no, that's sort of what I see here. These aren't terrible changes. Obviously, 2 charges. Anytime you give someone the ability to spend part of their ability, Tracer, original most powerful hero in the game, most of why they were that is they were able to spend their blink, one of their abilities, in pieces and charges without all-inning on committing the ability. D.Va was a terrible hero. When Defense Matrix was a cooldown that you used, it lasted until you interrupted it, or it lasted a few seconds, or until you interrupted it. But then once it was over, once you canceled it, it was just on cooldown. She became a way, way better hero and a mainstay of Overwatch once she got the ability to toggle Defense Matrix on and off on a charge bar, as in the ability to use part of her ability without all-inning it on cooldown. And that's generally true. If characters have the ability to use part of an ability, they become much stronger heroes. And this would be very significant because of that. It would be very hard for Winston's to get on top of this hero. That, however, might be why, I guess, as Winston, you're supposed to, I guess in this patch as Winston, you're supposed to walk up to Ashe and then leap away from her with your jump pack before she coach weapons you so you can do 100 damage. I'm kidding, but, that and D.Va's obviously booster. Hey, she knocks you away, but you have 4 seconds and an increased speed so you can still get right back on her. So I guess she's still diveable. Cassidy gets Peacekeeper. Combat roll usable while airborne? No. Cooldown increased from 10 to 12 seconds on flashbang. Deadeye now spawns more tumbleweeds. This is pretty OP. I mean, it's not as good as the Erisa hat change, but those more tumbleweeds. Okay, so air roll. The change here is air roll. Okay, and so Peacekeeper secondary fire, I don't know what that means. Does that mean that they took away his secondary fire? That his secondary fire is also point and click one bullet at a time? Combat roll usable while airborne. Doesn't like flashbang. I mean, this sort of looks like, they just don't like Cassidy very much. Maybe the tumbleweeds deal damage. I doubt it, Nuntype. I doubt it. Bastion. Okay, so this looks like, honestly, we've seen 2 DPS heroes so far. Ashe, there were more adjustments to, but while this is big, this seems like a lighter touch than we had on the tanks. This also seems like a lighter touch than we had on the tanks. Bastion. Bullet spread reduced by 15%. Tank configuration now grants 100 bonus armor. Yeah, I mean, those are buffs. Those are buffs, but those are buffs to a hero that is a not very good hero at higher levels. So I'm not super worried. I'm okay with that, really. I'd really need to see how much of a terror. This part won't be any more of a terror at low parts of the ladder, but I'd really need to see how much more of a terror this makes him at low parts of the ladder, because we do have to have some awareness of, what are we doing to the metal ranks, etc. when Bastion is being adjusted. But that's not terrible. Doomfist, health reduced from 250 to 225. His passive, the best defense. Shields gained through normal abilities increased from 30 to 40. Okay. Landing time after confirmation on Meteor Strike reduced from 1 to 0.5 seconds. Well, that's a big buff. That's a big buff that basically means supports just get eliminated to this thing. So this becomes less of a cooldown reset ability plus get out, and becomes more of a eliminate squishies without movement ability. And it's going to be good at that. If it's we haven't changed its damage, but we've cut in half the amount of time that people have to get out of it or to get further away from the epicenter where they take less damage. So that is going to make this quite lethal. But overall, Doomfist survivability is going to go down. 25 less health, yes, more shields per ability hit, but it's still going to end up in a Doomfist that's net less survivable, while being more lethal with his ult. Okay. I don't think this would actually work. I can see so far I'm liking what this player is doing more with their changes. I just think the tank stuff to me looks silly. The DPS stuff looks like there's a couple things that they don't understand the power of the change. This is a more powerful change than I expect they believe. And this is a more powerful change than I expect they believe. But it looks like this person is trying to keep things reasonable. And the reason I'm saying that is it looks from the rest of this stuff like they're trying to keep this stuff in line, relatively balanced type heroes, and there's a couple outliers here. But they're outliers that I could easily see someone misunderstanding. But this will make like, oh, you made your mistake. What was your mistake? Well, your mistake was you picked Zen when there was a Doomfist on the other team. You're just gonna get eliminated to his ult, and there's really not much you can do about it. And Zen players already feel like that, but they're wrong, and not about his ult, but about Doomfist in general. But like that's just gonna be the case. Like there's really not gonna be much they can do about his ult. Oh, 0.05. Oh, oh, yeah, okay, never mind. Never mind. What I said about the rest of this being in line and this seeming like an outlier, but maybe they didn't understand. Yeah, no, I'm wrong. You can't not understand how powerful it's going to be when it's 0.05. That's instant. That is instant, and you're just gonna drop on things. Right, right. No, it is virtually instant. You are correct, Blah. Thank you. Okay, well that breaks the theory that I was running with there. Yeah. Okay. Good catch. Thank you, Blah. So, Genji. We're looking at Genji. Cyber agility. Wall climbing speed increased by 50%. Totally fine. Wall climbing now refunds double jump availability. Aha! Return of the triple jump. Speaking of Genji techs, I'll take it. Shuriken recovery reduced from 0.68 to 0.6 seconds. Okay. He's going to be a bit of a terror at low ranks, but not. But he's going to be manageable. And he's still not a terribly strong high. Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. Like low ranks are going to complain about it, not like it if this were to happen, but these don't break the game up here. This is obviously going to make him more powerful, and that can be a bit of an issue. And Genji can get to a point where if he gets a little too powerful offensively because he has his dash reset, he turns into, okay, he's just an engine that chain wipes the team, where, hey, anyone on your team messes up, they get eliminated, and he's able to use that to roll through your whole team. That's how he's built. Very similar to Katarina in League. And, like, I get that, and most of the solution to that has been to sort of keep him weak, but these two things up here are totally safe. Obviously, that's a pretty significant wall speed increase, but I actually think it's fine. This could be dangerous. We'd have to actually see what happens, but it looks like it's being done with a somewhat fine touch, so I'm okay with it. Less than a tenth of a second there being adjusted. Okay. Hanzo. Storm arrows now ricochet off surfaces up to 5 times. We do not need to make Storm Arrow more powerful. Lunge. Cooldown reduced from 5 to 3 seconds. Nope. Nope. Okay. We've given up. We've given up on keeping this balanced. So we've had our silly Meteor Strike buff, and now we've had Hanzo, the return of Scatter Arrow while still having Storm Arrow, which is a better ability. Like that doesn't work. And hey, lunge, Hanzo needed more mobility. No, he didn't. Like Hanzo shouldn't even have lunge. Like Hanzo legit guys should just not have lunge. Like the hero would still be a perfectly reasonable, he'd be a worse hero, but he'd still be a perfectly reasonable hero without lunge. He already has wall climb. He already has the ability to eliminate people at long distances with a headshot. He already has Storm Arrow to help him at close range duels, as well as, whoops, even if he doesn't have Storm Arrow, someone can get eliminated by a headshot. Like, Sonic Arrow is generally undervalued, but is fantastic for poke fights, can mark flank routes. Like, Hanzo's a good hero when lunge doesn't really make sense in his kit. Nordstorm says, I really think Hanzo is a very underpowered hero that is in desperate needs of buffs. Lamau. Yeah, Lamau. Junkrat. Grenade count increased by 100%, and grenades drop in a 30% wider area. Oh, during Total Mayhem. So that's when Junkrat gets eliminated. He drops twice as many grenades, and they spread out to cover a 30% bigger area. That's fine. Frag Launcher. Impact damage reduced from 40 to 30. Maximum explosion damage reduced from 10 to 8. So you just don't like Junkrat? How are we making up for this? Concussion Mine. Maximum damage increased from 120 to 125. Minimum damage reduced from 30 to 25. You just don't like Junkrat. Like, why do you just not like Junkrat? He's a fine hero. He's not a good hero, but he's valid. He's got his uses. He's not total cheese anymore. Like, why are we just going, hey, you're going to do less damage with your grenades? Educed. Minimum explosion damage educed from 10 to 8. Okay. So we're decreasing both of these. We're pretending that we're increasing this, but we're really not, and this is a cooldown ability. Yes, he has 2 of them, but we're also decreasing the minimum. This is just Junkrat nerfs. Like, oh, but we've made Total Mayhem more fun. No, this is just Junkrat nerfs. Junkrat is not a hero that needs nerfs. Okay. If the last patch had gone through where they were going to buff Junkrat and Torb and everything like that, and then they went, no, it was experimental, guys, and we went, was it? This is clearly experimental. Most of the other experimentals have been real. Maybe Junkrat would have needed nerfs, but Junkrat in his current state does not need nerfs. This is really weird. And it's not fun weird either. Like, it's just bad weird. It's just someone doesn't like Junkrat. Hover jets. Holding crouch while airborne increases fall speed. Yep, she needs a bit of mobility help. And if you can give her vertical rather than horizontal mobility, that's probably better to ever not invade Echo's territory a bit. And what I mean by that is Pharah is currently designed as a poke dive hybrid that leans much more heavily into poke. So poke dive. And Echo is designed as a poke dive hybrid that leans more heavily into the dive of the two. So if you can give her more ability to move in the air, because Echo just has so much more mobility, that would help her. Pharah right here. So I could go with that. Concussive Blast, cooldown reduced from 9 to 8. I'm fine with that. Jump Jet, cooldown reduced from 9 to 8. I'm fine with that too. You could send these changes live and I wouldn't complain. Reaper. Shadow Step, movement speed reduced by 40% for 6 seconds after ending. Oh, increased. Movement speed increased by 40% for 6 seconds after Shadow Step ends. No. That's too much. Unless you want to give him that Shadow Step that took forever to cast again, and you want to give him less iframes again, this is too much. Like, your ability to stick to someone after you've Shadow Stepped, it becomes too valuable, for example, to go, hey, it's worth it to bubble a Shadow Stepping Reaper as your Reaper just tries to Shadow Step on top of someone, and they will be able to stick to them and eliminate them. Like, no. That's too easy to abuse. You get a teleport, and then after that teleport, you get increased movement speed. Like, targets cannot get away from you. We've experimented with this sort of thing in other games, and that's just not gonna work. Like, it completely fixes Reaper's range limitations, but we've been fixing Reaper's range limitations in other ways by making his weapon do more okay damage at medium short ranges. So definitely wouldn't go in this direction. Pellet spread reduced by 15%. I mean, again, like, Reaper's just gonna. Maybe this is the Reaper you need to deal with the Reinhardt that we're seeing up in these patch notes, but this is a monster of a Reaper right here. Daniel, I don't think these are legit. No, these are not legit experimental changes. These were put forth by content creators, and they've been put forth by Violet, Flats, and Samshu. We're currently going through the DPS ones. That said, we don't know that it won't be like last time they did this, where, they decided, hey, we really like the Diva remix stuff, so we're going to send that live to the real game. They may do some of that from here, for all we know. The precedent has been set. Okay. Like this movement speed increase thing, he can have this if he loses Wraith form. And I'm not even kidding. Because what this is this is too much of an all-in. Like, you teleport onto someone with pretty good iframes during the teleport and a pretty short cast time, and I'd be willing to protect this with a Zarya bubble. I would be willing to have you teleport into your own Winston's bubble when your Winston is dove in, whatever, and you do extreme damage at close range. You get to teleport basically to your target, and then you get to stick to them for 6 seconds, and they're just not really going to be able to get away. Like, if they do survive that, if you do mess that up, you have to get eliminated. And obviously, Reaper has Wraith form and can just leave. So this one might seem like, oh wait, it doesn't seem that crazy. This is wild powerful, and Reaper would become a very, very good DPS hero if this went through. Soldier 76. Okay, automatically reloads heavy pulse rifle after 3 seconds of continuous use. Okay. Oh, sprint automatically reloads heavy pulse rifle after 3 seconds of continuous use. Now increases heavy pulse rifle's damage by 10% while active, and that's his ult tactical visor. I mean, those are definitely buffs. Those are definitely buffs. Soldier having to make the decision while he's rotating to drop his sprint to reload to get less efficient travel time. Like, I agree this is annoying, being like, oh wait, I forgot to reload while I was sprinting between locations, and now I don't have ammo. Or, hey, I have to, as I'm doing a rotation and the enemies can't see me. Like, I agree that this is annoying, but I think it's a good trade to not have this, honestly. And I get this is trying to fix hit scan ults, but the game doesn't want to fix hit scan ults, guys. Like, you don't want to make High Noon and Tac Visor that powerful, because hit scan are already more reliable than projectiles. And one of the ways that Overwatch has tried to balance the difference between so there's really a couple ways to balance this. Usually the way this gets balanced, hit scan versus projectile, because projectiles are always going to be less accurate than hit scan. Usually that gets balanced by causing projectiles to do significantly more damage per second if you could maintain the same level of accuracy as hit scan, but you can't. Overwatch has mostly avoided that. Overwatch has mostly said, we don't like that. We don't want to make our projectiles do much more damage than hit scan, comparatively speaking. So what we're going to do is we're instead going to give the projectile heroes better ults. And that's not a perfect comparison, because obviously you could think of Sim as a hit scan hero. You could think of Sombra is a hit scan hero, and those have two of the most powerful DPS ults. But that's mostly the design philosophy they're going with. And you'll notice that, they have very obvious weaknesses. Sim obviously has a significant range issue. She can throw orbs, but she's got a significant range issue. Sombra obviously doesn't do the damage of a normal hit scan, that sort of thing. So that's one of the main ways they've tried to balance. And you can't just go, oh, let's keep making the ults of the hit scans better and better and better. Like, okay, well, what's your point in projectiles then? If you want projectiles to work, you're going to have to go the direction of Echo, where you can unleash stickies and focusing beam and finish people off and just take people 100 to 0 and a snap of your fingers, and have, oh, well, if you have a high accuracy, projectiles are allowed to do more damage. And Echo does seem to be a projectile hero that's moving in that direction. So if that's the direction they want to take projectile heroes, I guess you can get stronger hit scan ults here. But I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to go too heavy on either of those. But, I also think Echo is probably stronger than most people realize, and I've said that before. You say it has to be an absolute joke, Cager, but remember, the last time they did this, we got the D.Va remake. That went through. Or a version of it did. Okay. Sombra. Hacked. Affected target now takes 20% increased damage from all sources for 3 seconds, so that's trying to be a compromise between what we've seen from Overwatch 2 playtests and Overwatch 1, where currently in Overwatch 2, she hacks stuff to increase the damage she does to it, but by significantly more than 20%. Here, the idea is, let's experiment with damage is increased from all sources for 3 seconds. Cooldown increased from 8 to 12 seconds. Bullet spread reduced by 20%. That's monstrous. We didn't actually take away its ability to hack, but we're having it do 20%. Discord Orb plus hack means target doesn't exist, is what that says. 20% increased damage from all sources for 3 seconds, and the normal hack stuff still applies if they can't use their abilities, they can't use their defensive cooldowns. No, thank you. I don't care that your cooldown went up because you didn't you put the cooldown up, but the cooldown, this is the real cooldown, the one that only triggers if you're successful. Maybe you could have gotten away with this if you'd increased the cooldown on the your hack was interrupted. So now instead of your hack coming back basically a second later, it's going to take 4 seconds to come back. Maybe we could have gone with that in this situation, but we didn't. So this is just raw huge amounts of power creep. Okay. Symmetra Teleporter now increases movement speed by 50% for 1.5 seconds. Teleporting now does that. And that's not for her, that's for everyone who goes through it looks like. That bothers me less than the Reaper change. That bothers me less than the Reaper change. I can specifically see what this is for. This is so that Brawl teams can use the Teleporter as a play better. They can do the, hey, we're a Brawl team, we have our Reinhardt, Sim, Devo, whatever, and we see that there's a team over here, and they have themselves a Sigma, a Zen, whatever, maybe a Brig, and we want to be able to TP to them and not have, okay, well, here's our TP, and we've dropped our teleporter, and we don't want this team to be able to get a bajillion miles away in the time that's sort of unavoidable that it takes for the teleporter to actually deploy and our people to actually get through it even if they're organized. So I'm okay with that. I certainly wouldn't make it any longer than that. I'm also not convinced that Symmetra needs buffs. Obviously, this is just a straight buff, and it's only really going to work for organized play for the most part, but I could see this. The issue that I think I run into is I see that that's what we're trying to make work, that's what we're trying to make better, but the issue that you run into is when you go, hey, here's your Reinhardt, here's your Symmetra, here's the opposing team's Reinhardt and Bap whatever, and the Sim just goes, no, I'm going to use a personal TP, and now Sim is back here, and you really can't hit her because she's got a 50% movement speed. And if she's got a 50% movement speed buff, it is going to be brutal for people to hit her because she's going to be able to actively dodge so much more effectively, and there's no cooldown on her ability to really go back through her teleporter. So if you did this, you would have to, I think, balance it by working in a cooldown on using her teleporter. And I don't know that people would want that trade because if she goes through here, you need the opportunity to punish her for having come through, and you don't have it if she has a 50% movement speed buff. Like it's soldiers, BAPs, etc. are going to be like, wait, I have to hit this thing that's moving 50% faster than normal, or she would need a bigger hitbox. And even if she had a bigger hitbox, someone else could use her teleporter like that. I don't think so. Like I see where it's trying to go, and I kind of like that design space from a team standpoint, but from a you're trying to use the teleporter the same way you use a Lucio amp to try to push to try to catch a more mobile team, and I'm good with that. But what she can do with ITP behind you and leave type stuff just takes it off the table. Okay, now we look at Torb. Rivet gun, recovery time reduced from 0.6 to 0.45 seconds. That's a buff, a big one. Hammer damage increased from 55 to 75. Sure, why not? Overload now increases Forge Hammer damage to 125 while active. Damage reduced from 14 to 11 on the turret. Okay, that's a very different hero. We're meaningfully weakening the turret, though it still exists definitely and is still noticeable to flankers and such. But it's going to be a lot easier for tracers, for example, to destroy that. letting him. You've moved the spam power of the turret over to him with the primary fire change. And then you've upgraded the hammer sort of as a joke, but you've upgraded it further during overload. I don't think you still use the hammer during overload. I think you go, hey, no, I will still happily use this better primary fire that we have. Like, I get it, it's funny, but like, I think you still go this way. I look at this and go, this is for the memes, whatever, but this is just we're moving power, and I'm okay with that. If you want to move power from the turret to his primary fire, doesn't really bother me. The turret is still effective at this level. He's still duelable at this level. I think this is doable. It's not, and again, as an experiment. Like, I don't think, oh yes, this is definitely a better way to play Torb, but I look at this and go, that's not incredibly unreasonable. Okay, these two are just, again, being foolish, but like the changes that we're actually making here, no, but the range on Torb's hammer is not Ryan's hammer. What? What? uh, that would be a hard no. That would be a hard no. So we're looking at Tracer. Recall now restores all blink charges. Cooldown increase from 12 to 14 seconds. You could increase it from 12 to 16 seconds. You still can't have all your blink charges back when you recall. And this isn't even it restores your blink charges to what they were 3 seconds ago when your recall takes you back to, which at least, sort of makes a little more sense. This is it restores all of them, even if you didn't have all of them 3 seconds ago. So, like, no. Tracers just will not get eliminated. It's just not happening. And then ammo increased from 40 to 50 makes it so much easier to one-clip people. Now, obviously, we haven't increased her fire rate, so she has to stay in longer to one-clip people, but so much easier to one-clip people. This is just a hard no. That's too much Tracer favoritism. Not even maybe. Why not have recall, restore recall too? Yeah, why not? Okay. Widowmaker. Widow's Kiss, that's a weapon. Automatic fire, minimum damage after fall off reduced from 3.9 to 5. Okay. Automatic fire maximum damage increased from 13 to 15. So they just want her to Widow 76 harder. Infocyte now resets grappling hook cooldown. I don't hate those. Like, Widow isn't in a great spot right now. She's really not. She's got a couple maps that she's good on, but for most of the maps, she's just not good at the level that she's currently at. I think my issues with this are like, I don't mind buffing Widow, but I don't think these are the buff. And this could be the buff. Her ult now resets her Grappling Claw, and it's not like that's too powerful or anything. It's just kind of weird. Like, why does giving yourself Infocyte reset your grappling at cooldown? Like, it's not intuitive enough, if you get what I'm saying. It doesn't really fit Overwatch's design because they try to make most of the stuff in Overwatch's design make some level of sense. And this is just like, oh yeah, you get this back. Well, why? Why would I get my grappling claw back when I pop Infocytes? You'd have to like rename the ult or something. I yeah. I don't think this one fits very well. I don't mind giving her a buff. So we're certainly not giving her 2 charges of grappling hook all the time or anything, but like I don't mind giving her a buff. I don't think this is too powerful. I don't think the first ones do much. I don't think this one is too powerful having her ult reset her grappling claw hook cooldown. It could even be a good change. It really doesn't feel right from a, well, why does using her ult get her cooldown back? Like when you use whole hog, for example, and that reloads your weapon, well, that's kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. You were using your weapon, that's sort of part of the ult. That kind of makes sense as part of the ult. But if using What's a better example? Yeah, I guess I don't have one. It just doesn't seem like a good change right there. Like again, from a power standpoint and from a balance standpoint, that's totally fine, but it's not intuitive enough. The way that sounds are intuitive in this game of like, oh, I can sort of tell even before I've learned everything whether that's an enemy ult or a friendly ult. That doesn't have the right feel to it. Okay. Moving on to supports, and I believe these are being done by Violet. Let's take a look. Violet. Yeah, Violet's doing support heroes. So I think we used a lighter touch on our DPS heroes than we did on our tank heroes, and I do like that. I don't mind how much they, went, hey, let's try moving power around here on Torb. But then we just had a couple things that just totally break it. Where I suspect they did most of their balancing on these heroes in like, okay, they did most of it, they thought of it, and then as they got to the end, they just kind of threw it out and went, oh, I need to make some more changes. There's heroes I haven't changed, and I think that's where we get to. Like, I think we probably underestimated how powerful two charges are, but I can understand that. I think this probably got added in a second pass if I need to do something more to Doomfist, and it's extreme and silly, and that's unfortunate. Um, this is probably just they like Hanzo too much. This is some dislike of Junkrat, it seems. Fair changes are fine. This is probably misunderstanding how broken powerful this is. This is a light enough touch, even though it's too strong. And this is probably not understanding how powerful this is. And this is almost certainly not understanding the repercussions. Like thinking about the using it like Lucio's speed amp for a brawl team, but forgetting that it's going to make her incredibly good at actively dodging people trying to aim at her when she uses just TP flanks herself on a team while they're brawling with another team. And then this is just tracer favoritism. Okay, let's move on to supports. Anna. Limiting sleeping targets resets the cooldown. Oh, Anna is Genji now, is she? I see. I see. Nano boost now applies to Anna when used without a target. What does without a target mean? Like, what does that mean? So, like, if you're far enough away from your settings to hit the target, you just hit yourself instead. Okay. I mean, that's probably fine. It's not like it's broken FFA or anything. Obviously, this is a joke, and no, you can't have it. Absolutely not. Baptiste, Biotic Launcher, healing grenades now affect Baptiste as well? No way. Regenerative Burst now damages enemies instead of healing allies. I assume that includes himself. Exo Boots now deals 40 damage to enemies within 4 meters upon landing. Okay, so he Mario style jumps on people. So no, we can't have supports are not allowed to heal themselves that easily. Not a support that has the kit that Baptiste does. Like I get it, we've taken away Regenerative Burst's ability to heal, and now Bap has this idea if he can jump on people and use Regenerative Burst when he lands on them. So, like, he lands on them for 40 damage, and he pops Regenerative Burst. So, maybe he hits one or two people with his landing, hits a couple more people, including those two, with his Regenerative Burst, and then he hops away with the next Exo Boots. Or, maybe he lamps to protect himself and just fights from there, whatever. Like, I can see how that would be fun, but like, okay, let's have that fun or let's not have that fun. Either way, being able to self heal with your right clicks with BAP is way, way too strong. Like that's like forget all this other stuff. Even just having that, even without regenerative burst, even if you've jumped yourself into trouble like that, being able to self heal with your own shots is way too powerful. Someone like Lucio is allowed to self heal, but you'll notice that they've nerfed his ability to self heal in terms of his aura heals him for less than it heals his friends. And he also doesn't have nearly the power that Baptiste does. He doesn't have a weapon that allows him to eliminate people as quickly as Soldier does. He doesn't have the ability to throw out massive amounts of, oh, let me heal my tanks, and oh, I can heal my, I can heal my tanks massive amounts, that sort of thing. Like, No, Lucio can self-heal, but it's much more tied. Mercy can self-heal, but it's really just having shields that regenerates. Anna has to spend nade to self-heal, which is a huge investment. Brig, you might be going, oh, she has Inspire to self-heal. You'll notice she can't repair pack herself, and the game has to be that way. If she could repair pack herself, she would be a way stronger hero. She has to get Inspire going, and it's hard to get Inspire going if you're not already full health, because it's very easy to take her out and blow her up in that situation. Being able to right click your feet and heal yourself, the amount that his biotic launcher heals would just make him an absolute monster, even if you took away regenerative burst. Okay. Brick. Inspire no longer heals allies. Instead, triggering Inspire now reduces the cooldown of Repair Pack by 0.5 seconds. Can you still only trigger it like is each hit you do reduce the cooldown of Repair Pack by 0.5 seconds, or is it still the same thing where your Inspire would usually last for 6 seconds, so you can only, even though you only reduce the 0.5 seconds once, you can only reduce it by 0.5 seconds every 6 seconds. I don't know what that does well enough. Repair Pack's charges increased from 3 to 5. Maybe there's something there. I'm not sure these numbers are right. I'm not convinced that these numbers are right, but there could be something there to take away her Inspire, instead have her have to take risks of fighting to get repair packs back. Um, you probably do need some lockout, though. You can't have it be every single hit is getting her half a second off her cooldown, because then once you're in the brawl phase, she's never going to run out of repair packs. But that's probably not what it is. Depending on how you do those, that could be a big change to the hero, but maybe it makes sense. Again, I don't mind experimenting with that, because it's not, like, if you get the numbers right, that's not necessarily broken. Inspire is so strong in building rally. I agree. Bad change for Brig, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily know where this one goes. Like, you definitely have to keep playing with these numbers of like how much it reduces it and how frequently can she reduce it. I probably overall say why, and I don't really like it. Um, but I'm not like this is definitely bad and terrible, or oh my god, this is over the top powerful. It makes her different, like it made Torb different when we weakened his turret and made his primary fire better. This one's a little bigger than that, but I'm kind of have it in a similar boat. But yeah, it's not my favorite. I don't really feel a need to do it. Lucio. Sound barrier cost reduced by 30%. Just hit more shots, man. Now deals massive damage to enemies. Lucio lands directly upon. We really like this landing on people, this jumping on people does damage to them thing, Violet, don't we? Okay. Sonic Amplifier. Fire rate increased by 15% while wall riding. After 1 second of wall riding, this bonus damage is reduced by 50%. So the idea is that's going to reward wall riding better. That's probably not how they do it, though, because Lucio is already hard to learn, and that you have to get down his weapon play, you have to get down wall riding, and then you have to get down weapon play while wall riding, and that's hard. Adding an extra layer to it, I don't mind the having to refresh your wall riding by switching walls, things like that. This 1 second thing is fine with me. What I do mind is it's not a fire rate increase that you'd go with. It would actually be a damage increase. And you can't make it 15%, you'd have to make it a lower number. But making Lucio so much more complicated still with a no, you fire faster, you fire like, well, if it's fire rate, maybe. It can't be the speed, it can't be the travel speed of the pellets. That would just be too confusing. Projectile speed. So if we're not changing projectile speed, which is what I was thinking, we're just changing fire rate so you can get out an extra burst. No, that could potentially be okay. That could potentially be okay. Um, but you can't do both of these. You can't both you can't both reduce the cost of his sound barrier by 30% and give him a buff that is going to allow him to do more damage. You can give him a buff that is not very situationally, but it's going to allow him to do a bit more damage, and that will increase the speed that he gets his ult. I could live with this. I can't live with this. You can't have a 30% reduction to sound barrier. I promise you, the very good Lucios who know how to farm every bit of damage will be sound barriering like every fight, and you're not going to like it if you reduce the cost by 30%. And you give him a damage increase. Okay. Mercy. Killing blows extend the duration of Valk by 3 seconds. Super Saiyan Valk, okay. Staff healing now reduced from 55 health per second to 40 health per second over 2 seconds while connected. What? 55 seconds to 40 seconds over 2 seconds while connected. Healing was returned to normal HPS over 2 seconds. Oh, got it. Got it. So it starts at 55 health per second, and then if you heal people for 2 seconds, it or reduces to 40 health per second. So you can't just charge chain yellow beam to keep people alive through pressure. Okay. Healing was returned to normal health per second over 2 seconds while not active. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. Is the idea that we're going to try to encourage more blue beam by having it weaken over time, or is it the idea of, oh, it's too frustrating to fight people as the entire team is being healed by mercy staff? Because it's really not. Like, no. Resurrect can now be canceled by using secondary fire while channeling, refunding 50% of its cooldown. Nah. These are bad changes. Like, it's a fun Valkyrie. Ah, yes, let's just, keep getting eliminations as mercy to keep the Valkyrie going offensive, that sort of thing. But no, no. And I get it. Like, this isn't talking in Valk. This is talking all the time, though it would also affect Valk. But the answer is no. I get it. Like, it's hey, it's too much pressure. It's annoying, that sort of thing. It would hit some nice breakpoints, like allowing Winston to actually hurt things. Wouldn't that be cool? And the idea is it's to sort of not let the thought is probably it's either going to discourage pocketing, but it's specifically going to discourage healing pocketing. But like, no, it's a nerf that doesn't make sense to a hero that already doesn't see that much playtime. Let's be serious. And it's a big nerf to a hero that doesn't see that much playtime. This is not the right way to change Mercy. If anything, Mercy is looking for buffs, and these are not those buffs that she's looking for. And I don't mean Mercy wildly needs buffs. I think Mercy's in a mostly okay place. But if you look at where Mercy's used, you see Brawl comps are looking to use Lucio. Poke comps are mostly looking to use Brig most of the time. Occasionally they get greedy and they'll go like Bap Zen, but most of the time you'll use Brig. And dive comps are again mostly using Brig. Sometimes they'll use Mercy. Sometimes poke comps will use, occasionally a poke dive hybrid will use Mercy. A full poke comp will very rarely use Mercy. A poke dive comp will sometimes use Mercy, but like 2/3 of the time they're going to use Brig. So I don't think we're in a situation where we need to be going, oh, let's nerf Mercy. And I get it. This is trying to nerf this, again, that specific pocketing behavior. People don't like it. Maybe this would encourage the Mercies to leave the target that they're on and go find someone else because they can't heal them more. More likely, it would cause better Mercies to just go, hey, we're going to use more blue beam, less yellow beam, but they're already doing that. You don't need to encourage this. This is already the right way to play the game. And I get it. You're going, no, I got ahead, and then I missed 3 shots, and they got healed back up, and I'm upset. But, like, don't miss your shots. Okay. Bad Mercy changes. Moira. Bite at Grasp. Healing now consumes Moira's own health if used while out of energy. Sure, why not? Bite Orb. Allies that receive at least 100 healing from the same Bite Orb are cleansed of all status effects. okay, but probably not the way I do it. Enemies that suffer at least 100 damage from the same Sandbatic Orb are slowed by 30% for 1.5 seconds. That's not going to work. Um, 100 is a really big number. I'm actually okay with this concept of Biotic Orb either applying a slow when used for damage or a cleanse when used for healing. I'm good with that. But getting 100 is like getting, depending on how you're using it, a third or half of the orb's value on a single target. You can't heal someone that's only missing 80 health for 100 with an orb, so you can't cleanse them. Like, that's awkward and doesn't really work. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say you would need to lower your thresholds on that. Probably meaningfully. Fade now cleanses status effects from players Moira passes through and ally players that are around her when it ends. Well, okay. So your team gets earth shattered and you just fade through them and they all instantly get up? Is that the idea? Like, eh. I get it. Moira does need some more utility. I think consumes her own health to heal. That's whatever. Shouldn't even be relevant. Doesn't matter. I don't care. But this doesn't work. Like, there's something to explore here. There is something to explore here, but these numbers are too high. And we need to know exactly what statuses can be cleansed. Can we cleanse? So you can cleanse being on fire from TNT. You can maybe cleanse being purple. You can cleanse being hacked. Can you cleanse being stunned? Can you cleanse being frozen? Can you cleanse being booped? Like, you suddenly stop moving? I don't know. We'd have to see exactly what this does. Giving Fade a cleanse utility there, that maybe there's something there. I don't particularly like it. I think tying something to the orb is better, but these orb thresholds are too high to work. Awesome. Moira's the I hate Anna hero now, yes? Yeah, it's kind of an inverse of their usual relationship, which used to be, oh, you're Moira, you have a lot of healing on your team, have a nade. Oh, we don't like this. Okay. Zenyatta. Discord Orb damage amplification reduced from 25 to 20%. No thank you. Can now be applied to barriers, turrets, and other attackable target objects. How do I Discord Orb a Rein barrier? Do you mean that if I Discord Orb Rein, his barrier will take more damage? Like, how does this work? Interesting. No longer reveals the position of its target through line of sight. Okay. Line of sight time reduced from 3 seconds to 1.5 seconds. You're just constantly going to have to be throwing Discord Orb out there. If it falls off at 1.5 seconds out of line of sight, you can't see the target through walls anymore. You've reduced the damage amplification. Yeah, it's a big buff if we can hurt barriers faster. Like, that is a big buff, but I'm probably not in love with it. Harmony Orb, line of sight return. Why? Like, I don't want Harmony Orb to come back after 1.5 seconds. I want it to heal flankers. Are we increasing the deployment speed of these? Like, if you're making these come back faster, you need to revert the change where we decreased the application speed. So the Harmony Orb and the Discord Orbs travel to their targets more slowly than they used to. They still travel pretty fast, but we need them to go like lightning if we're in a situation where they fall off at 1.5 seconds out of line of sight. Transcendence, total healing reduced from 1800 to 1200. Now applies Discord Orb to nearby enemies. No, don't do that. Don't do everyone gets discorded when you go into a brawl. Everyone's discorded at once. No. That's okay. We've seen all the changes. These support changes mostly don't work for me. This is too silly. This is way too powerful, and we're in silly territory with the jumping on people. This maybe has some potential, but I don't particularly like it. That's kind of just my bias, though. But this could be something that you could potentially explore, the type of thing that you'd actually maybe want to experiment with on an experimental to see, wait, how does this work? You can't have both of these. The sound barrier, I mean, can you not have both of these? Cost reduction of sound barrier by 30% is just way too much. You can reduce the cost of sound barrier by like 5 or 10%, and that might help Lucio quite a bit. You can't reduce it by 30. You definitely can't reduce it by 30 while increasing Lucio's offense. These are just bad changes. There's something here, but not at these value numbers. Not this. This is too powerful. And I hate the Zen changes. Okay. So, these are an experimental patch. Overall, I would say I'm really not terribly a fan of the tank or the support changes. I see some value in portions of the DPS changes, but I think it got away from our DPS balancer there as well. It was sort of like, I got like 3/4 of the way through doing it, and now I need to turn in my homework, so let me just rush the rest, sort of thing. So yeah, that's what we saw. I certainly wouldn't want these to go live in the real game. My preference would be probably that none of these go live in the real game, but I did point out a couple as we went through here. No, I won't say that. I did point out a couple as we went through here that I think would be fine. Like, I'd be okay with really fair changes that we talked about here. I'd be okay with a couple other things that we saw, but those were all in the, I would want to see how just changing these two things plays. Not even maybe. Yeah, so there's a couple things that maybe have some potential, but let me know, what do you guys think? Are you like, hey, these are great, these are terrible? Do you think one of the balancers did better than the others? Let's catch up a little bit on chat here. One day I hope to see temporal experimental patch notes. Could be good, could be good. I could make a super balanced game. We would have to see. Of course, I'd probably be one of the balancers and they'd have two others that they would not play ball, but hey. It would bust Brig more than she already is. It might. It might bust Brig more than she already is, but it really depends what we're talking about for this Brig change, because I really don't know. Can we get this half-second cooldown reduction once every 6 seconds, or can we get it as many times as we want, as many times as we can hit things? If there was a grace worse than Bale, it would have it. Don't touch Transcendence, leave it as it is. Okay. Temporal looks defeated. By the end of it, there was some moments there where it was okay, but the supports kind of took everything I had left, and it was just like, no, thank you. Blame the controller. Proposed the more rework before. It involved a new ability on the reload button. She could take half her own health pool to refill the resource meter. Oh, that's got it. Okay. I don't really think it's necessary, but so many Moiras manage their resource so poorly, so I guess I see why some people think it's necessary. Nordstrom says, I think giving Mercy some sort of healing resource or limit to healing would be better to discourage single target pocketing rather than reduction in HPS. Maybe. Maybe. I'm just not convinced you need to nerf her, to be perfectly honest. She's one of those heroes that she's going to be better low run the ladder where people to aim and people struggle to burst through the damage that she can do. And she's going to get worse as people get better. And people are going to play her wrong lower on the ladder. Unless they get coaching, then they might play it better, and then they might move up the ladder. You can get coaching. Join my Discord in the description below. See what my rates are. See, other people that have gotten coaching there, all that good stuff. But hey. Okay. Uh-huh. Anything else here? They made Tracer stronger. Wild, I know. Reaper should wear Christmas hat too. I could get behind that. They are nerfing hero damage and CC abilities to help with the instant tank deletion, which keeps people wanting to play tank role. You can't tell me that while also increasing Tracer's damage. You can't tell me that while also giving Hanzo lunge. Like, Winston looks at Hanzo and just goes, why do you have lunge? That's stupid. Like, that is stupid. Deploy my bubble, can't stay on you, you lunge type thing. Like, There are some places in the map which are more accessible with lunge. There are none type. There definitely are some places in the map that are more accessible with lunge. I'm not convinced that Hanzo needs to be able to get to them. Okay. That's going to do it. Uh-huh. What about giving Mercy her damage boost on a cooldown rather than just a base setting? Giving Mercy her damage boost on a cooldown? No, I think Mercy's damage boost has to not be on a cooldown. I mean, that is sort of the Mercy play, recognizing exactly when to swap, when not to. I wouldn't really want to put it on a cooldown also because it makes her brutal for lower levels where, okay, you damage boost someone and then they miss their shots type thing. Like, I don't think so. Yeah, Scatter Arrow is back without getting rid of Storm Arrow, which is wild. I'm planning to do that, Semitic. I just haven't been able to fit it in over the weekend, and then this went live, so we did this one. But that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up here. If you're enjoying the content, please do drop a like, consider subscribing if you haven't already done so, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.